and welcome to our next series of chats with local East Anglian business owners. And today I'm talking to James Leggett from MTM Consulting. Good morning, James. How are you today?
Good morning, Martin. I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm absolutely fabulous. Thank you very much. And really great to see you here this morning. Really looking forward to this chat with you. Where's the best place to start? I wonder, why don't we just start with you telling me a bit about your business?
Yeah, of course. MTM Consulting are a marketing and market research agency specializing in the education sector. We started off mostly in the independent, so the fee charging education sector in 1984. Since that point, we've grown through to including academies, free schools, higher education, any education business, as well as international entities as well. So it's been an interesting time.
Fantastic. So you I think you said that you bought the business in 2015, and so you essentially you've been in business for 6 years. How have you found that 6 year time? Has it been has it been tough? I mean, how have you gone?
Yeah, so I took over in 2015. The previous owner retired. Walked through the door one morning, announced her retirement, and we were all redundant. And I said, "Well, hang on. There must be a conversation to be had here." So I arranged a management buyout. I was the kind of not the majority shareholder, but I kind of led the team on the hope that everybody would be in it together. Everybody would work hard together to make this thing work. That it doesn't work, and now everybody I talk to about it says, "No, that's not a thing. Don't do that." Well, thanks for that. Too late now. But it's a hard life running a small consultancy where all your projects are ad hoc, so it's very lumpy, and our clients are all around the UK, so we're on the road all the time. I was aware of that because I was their salesman prior to taking over, and I knew something was up, so I'd kept a little kind of book on the side, if you will. And then when the time came, we had contacts to ring, we had jobs in the bag. The first year was good. Nothing changed. We had an MD on board, kind of who came with the business anyway. So I carried on in my role as salesman, and it was only kind of at that point when I then said, right, we've been in business a year. Where are we? How are things going? Can I have a look at a profit and loss? That's when I realized things weren't perhaps as they should have been, and there had been some misappropriation there. And that's the point that that is really where the journey began, if we're honest, after that first year, because the first year, everything carried on as normal. But then it was a case of, right, well, if we were to start this thing from scratch, because we basically have to now, how does it look? What can we automate? Which of the day jobs is there a better way of doing? So I've a report that used to take a week to produce. We're doing the bones of it in an hour now.
Wow. Okay.
So with that in mind, we don't need 4 staff here to run those reports because I could do it on my own. It was also a case of what do we need? What don't we need? Well, if we could get away without it, we cut it. So we really slimmed down, and we're now back in the kind of growth phase. So we don't need anybody to do that work, but we have I employed someone to do that as the first thing to then give me the headspace of, right, what happens next? How do we grow this thing? And then Corona came along.
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to that in a minute. But sounds like there was some knocks and some learning in the early years for you, but you've come through that quite strongly. And then when you were telling us a bit about the business, you were talking about how broad your business covers in terms of the education market. So from your perspective, who would be your ideal client, or what is your target market?
We've traditionally worked solely with independent schools, fee charging schools, and they are all absolutely lovely people. Most part they know what they want. So, because most of them want broadly the same types of exercises, that's what we've geared ourselves around. So we're well set up to please a very small core market. The challenge is then, as a farmer's son, I'm very aware of eggs and baskets. We have a couple of eggs in a very small basket. And that's where the drive came from, to kind of, well, actually, that's a high risk strategy, and we need to look at what happens next. How do we expand? Where else can we use these products? Which other baskets will these eggs fit in? And then, are there new baskets we should be looking at? That's the Boston matrix, isn't it? I have learned something along the way. So I guess our ideal client is a classic independent school, because that's what we're set up best to kind of accommodate. But that's not necessarily the best client in a business sense.
Okay, so what would be the best client in the business sense? Where would you, or what markets would you like to, to start venturing into?
Yeah, the next steps for us, we're looking a lot more at the higher education sector. We have a consultant on board helping us with how do we approach universities. They're looking for exactly the same things as independent schools are. Their marketing teams are a lot more set up. So a lot of what we do is segmenting markets, profiling customers, identifying where there are core pockets of potential customers. Universities are looking at doing exactly the same thing. So how do we sell ourselves to them? And aligned with that, we're also looking at how do we open a side arm that can do this type of thing for anybody who comes to us. So a non-education branch, if you will, which we're calling data-driven insights. So that came from, we worked with a marketing company who were working alongside Jump Street. If they were opening a trampoline park, where should it be? Well, we know all about everybody, so we can tell them exactly where that trampoline park ought to be. We worked with a menswear shop who was the chairman of governors at a local independent school. We worked with the school. He came up and said, I do a leaflet drop. Where should I be targeting these leaflets? Because we know all about everybody, we can tell him those things. So that's where the kind of the data-driven insights arm came from.
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. So look, we've obviously been through a fairly tough year, COVID-19, etc., and the pandemic and all the the restrictions that we've had to overcome. So how has COVID-19 sort of affected your business over the last year?
Come March last year, it was evident something was happening. In March, we had 4 orders cancelled.
Oh, wow.
We've never had orders cancelled. We've had maybe 1 in my entire 6 years here. So to have 4 cancelled was a shock. I think there was an apocalyptic mindset. I certainly sent lovely letters around to all my subcontractors that said, thank you for everything, but this is it for the foreseeable. The furlough scheme came out, so the 2 employees I had at the time, they were on that instantly, and work stopped. So in April, nothing happened. In May, we started to tick along a little bit, but in April, I moped a little bit, I guess, just enjoyed the family time, but nothing was happening, and I did nothing. May, I didn't have a lot of work on, but started to look at, right, what's the cost base in the business now? What are we spending money on that perhaps we didn't need to? So I cancelled all the direct debits at that point, and waited to see who complained. If they complained, we could then make a judgment whether that was a viable expense or not. And if they didn't complain and I didn't notice we didn't have it, we probably didn't need it. We had 48 web domains and web names, of which we were using 3. So a 20 pounds a year, you in the grand scale of things, it all comes out in dribs and drabs, not as a single lump. You don't really notice it. So as soon as I cancelled the direct debits, they started to flag. And I thought, what are all of these? I started exploring all those legacy things that I've not really had a lot to do with. At the same time, I was keeping, I phoned around all my friends just to make sure, particularly my single male friends, make sure they were all okay, just catch up with everybody. And a friend who's a salesman was on furlough from, and I'd worked alongside him, met him at a whole number of conferences. And I said to him, well, if you're on furlough, can you write me a sales plan? I don't, because I'm effectively a single operator with just 2 back office guys, everything's in my head. I didn't have any of that written down. So I asked him to write a sales plan for me, which he subsequently did. And it was a case of where's the weak point in the business now? Well, I haven't got the day job happening around me. Start to have a look at where the gaps are. Sales is our next way to growth. There's we can't cut costs anymore. Maybe we can a little bit again now, but it was a case of how do we grow this thing? And then I thought, well, what's the goal here? And that's where we kind of had a chat around with friends and thought, well, if I want a helicopter in 5 years, what's the journey to the helicopter? How does that look? And that's really that helps. I have no interest in flying a helicopter, but it gives, well, if I want a helicopter, I need an income of a minimum of 300K a year. So where are the margins now? Where does turnover need to be in order to, assuming those margins, in order for me to fly a helicopter? And that's how we reached the £1 million turnover target, assuming 30% kind of clear profit, those sorts of questions. And that's where all our current strategies come from.
So it's interesting. So it sounded like you started off with a bit of like, what we're going to do here, immediately looked at your cash flow, got that aligned, and then actually moved into a growth mindset rather than batten down the hatches mindset of sit and wait. You got proactive and thought, well, actually, what can we do here? Where are the opportunities? And gone forward and grasped quite a few of them. So in terms of change, I mean, obviously you made some changes in the business. You brought on, but it sounds like you brought on a salesperson, which wasn't there before, and you've restructured your finances. You've now got a goal. I'm assuming you got a detailed plan to get there.
Yeah. So when they announced the bounce back loans, that was the point at which I made a formal offer to the salesman, who was just a subcon at the time, but a good friend. I made an offer to him, a formal offer, and he accepted that safe in the knowledge that it takes a year, really, for it, particularly in this sector, for a salesman to really find his feet and to grow well. So that bounce back loan was then a good sort of a cushion as an insurance policy, which we could never have afforded before. And that's why we haven't had a salesperson. That risk step, what if they're hopeless and they cost me a lot of money? Because it's not only the salesman that's the cost. Once you have a good salesperson, they want supporting documentation, and they want to change the brand image that's always been in my head, as opposed to, and something I'd never been that focused on. Our reputation is strong enough in the existing market, but now we have a salesperson who's looking at growing into new markets. We can't rely on word of mouth. We have to be a lot more proactive. So that meant a complete change in the marketing strategy as well. And rather than using an outsourced agency, we pulled that in-house a bit more as well. So it's lots of changes, and that all came from that kind of May brainstorm. Where do we go from here?
Well, that's great. I mean, it's great that you've taken a real positive outlook, and you've got some real positive plans for the future, and to a certain degree expand your team. In terms of your business, is there anything that you, or is there something you'd like to say or share with your customers or prospective customers?
The thing I've always found the hardest is that they never quite tell you the truth. And I'm not sure if it's pride or if they genuinely don't know and that they are telling you the truth. But then when we have a look at the data, we know all about everybody, so we can then we know how they're doing. And it just is interesting how many exercises we do that are focused around the symptom, only to uncover the problem, which is then another exercise. I think if we had a more open, perhaps, a conversation about where we are and what our not only the business challenges, but also the personal challenges within the business, that would help us to prepare a support package that was more tailored to actually helping them personally, as well as solving the challenges internally. I believe in transparency, in open communications, and I often think if we just had a little bit more along those lines at the outset of a project, that would really help to kind of ensure that full value is achieved at the end.
Yeah, so really being open on a real open dialogue with you will get more value out of you and your business for a prospective client in essence. Yeah.
Yes, entirely. Yeah.
Okay, great. So look, what's the one thing that you personally missed during lockdown?
One of the bonuses from last year, I'm a positive person, you may have noticed that by now, was
I have noticed.
I played a lot of golf last year, which was fantastic. I'm not a golfer by any means. I just enjoy the walk in the park, and there are no concerns of social distancing when I'm playing golf, because we'll never be near any of us on the way through. I guess one of the things I missed was that a dinner party or barbecue conversation with other business owners. One thing kind of is it can be a kind of lonely, because you're the only person in the business who knows exactly what's happening, and there are certain things you can't discuss with the team, but you can discuss with other people in a similar situation. So I've missed that, and of course family. So we moved to Colchester about 1.5 years ago. I'd seen my grandfather every Thursday morning for breakfast, and then he always came to us for fish and chips on a Saturday night as well. So kind of keeping up with the family on that side of things. And I have a new niece now that I've never seen. So
wow. So a lot of family stuff, a lot of human contact, and just so you know, that opening gambit of, look, whenever anybody plays golf with me, social distancing is not a problem. Normally when somebody said that to me, they end up being very good at golf. So just watch who you say that to. That's normally, look, I'm going to tell you I'm rubbish, so I come across really good, and I'm really good, and I'm going to beat you. That's the normally the gambit. But what have you learned about yourself in the last 4 months or so?
I've learned that I'm no good at watching television. I'm not a good television watcher. Either I sit and play guitar or noodle, as they call it, on a guitar all through One Born Every Minute or whatever, all those things. I'm not good at sitting on.
I'm sure that goes down well with the family.
Certainly. My wife, yeah. My mother-in-law's moved in at the moment just to help with childcare, homeschooling, all those sorts of things. And my wife and her have been watching was it kind of Married at First Sight Australia, it just feels such a huge waste of my life to be sitting and watching those sorts of things. So I keep myself entertained out in the garage until around 9 o'clock in the evening, at which point I've been learning a Rubik's Cube, so I can now complete the Rubik's Cube in less than 3 minutes. But I guess it's the power of positivity, accepting limitations. My wife and I, my wife is doing a university degree from home. We have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old who are learning homeschooling. And obviously I'm attempting to run a small business. So accepting that, you know what, we can't achieve what we are used to achieving. We have to plan our time and manage what's realistic in a day. I was kind of starting work at 8 in the morning, having 4 hours off across the course of the day to help with homeschooling, and then working until 11:30, midnight. That isn't sustainable. At some point you have to accept that it won't happen. There's no point crying yourself to sleep about it, because that doesn't help either. So keeping yourself entertained, building a plan for what happens next.
Yeah, so some real good practical advice in there, and it's great. I'm really pleased that you get your man cave now that you disappear to practice your Rubik's Cube and build whatever it is that you're building in that cave. So that's great. That's really great. What final question for me today is what or who has inspired you most in your life?
I'm often asked this one, and I come from a farming background. My father was always working long hours. Mother worked hard as well. They had 3 children in independent schooling. So they were doing everything they could, not for us to have flash holidays, but to keep us in school. And I was a chorister in Norwich Cathedral from the age of 9 till about 14. So I had to be driven to school every day, 40 minutes away on a good run, every single day, 7 days a week, in order for that to happen. And it was my grandfather who took up that mantle, really. He was the one who drove me around a lot. Obviously my parents were helping, but it was always my grandfather. And I think it was that kind of interaction with him. He used to be in business himself. Well, he worked in a printing press, but kind of led that for a long while. And it was interesting. It's kind of the conversations with him. He was the one who was always the most supportive. How are we doing? What's working? Kind of in my music and in school and all those sorts of things. And kind of his attitude on life, which was always positive, he's always been the person I never wanted to upset. But my father's father did once say to me, he said, worrying is like a rocking horse. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And I thought, that's such a great mantra. There's no point in worrying about things if you can't do anything about it. And if you can do something about it, then do something about it. So that with the 2 of them, that's kind of encouraged me all through.
Great. So thank you very much for your time. And look, I'll see you very, very soon.
Look forward to it.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Martin.